Hi, I'm Stacy Wright from Phoenix MUFON. Thanks so much for joining us tonight for the Phoenix MUFON live stream lecture series. Tonight we've got a super special guest, Marc D'Antonio. He is MUFON's chief video and photo analyst. He's also a professional astronomer, and he's got a super entertaining talk for us tonight. What do we see when we look up into the night sky? So you're going to want to get a pad of paper and a pen, and you're going to want to take your own notes for your home telescope. Marc, take it away.
Well, hey there, Stacy. Thank you for having me. I'm hopefully nobody has an issue with blue light here. My office has these programmable lights. As an astronomer, sometimes I like to change the lights. So when I actually go out and you move get the dome open and start doing a nighttime of streaming for folks, I tend to drop these lights to a dark red color, and it was just a hassle to turn the lights off and then turn on red lights. So instead, I got these special lights. They're called Hue lights, H-U-E, and they're Wi-Fi connected and everything. It's really cool. And so anyway, but that's geeks. That's what we do. We're geeks. Stacy's a geek too, but she doesn't want to admit it. So tonight I figured, since it's actually cloudy out and I can't do an actual stream for tonight, which would have been really cool, because I would have done that in a heartbeat. But I thought that maybe tonight we would talk about what we see when we look up and leave you with a few things that you can actually get yourself. Yes, you can get these things too, and actually check them out. They're applications for iPhones or your Android phone, and you'll be able to take the night on by yourselves and have a really good time. And so let's do that, shall we? So let's see now. We're going to be talking about looking up in the sky. So let's look up. That's what the name of this presentation is. It's basically an enthusiast guide to the night sky. It's like someone who doesn't know a whole lot about the night sky, who wants to learn about the night sky, and what are those things in the night sky? Well, this is going to give you an idea. So, when we look up in the sky, the first thing we notice is that the stars are, of course, very different colors. I know that sounds elementary, but there's a lot behind that, and we're only going to talk a little bit about that, but the purpose is to help you figure out the three-dimensional nature of the universe. Now, how can colors possibly help you with that? I'll give you an idea. When we look at the universe, one of the things we notice is that all these stars of different colors are very they go from a very bright blue to a very dim red. All right. And down the center of this diagram here, you can actually see, a line that snakes right down the middle. And that snaky line is where all normal stars are. Now, above that, and those stars go from blue to red, as you can see, from the upper left to the lower right. And also, if you look above that line, stars that are not normal anymore, that is to say, they're done with their main nuclear fuels, they end up going off this line, which is where normal stars go. Normal stars process hydrogen and turn it into helium. That's called nuclear fusion. You've heard of it before. If not from me, from other places. And this fusion process is something that is usually in the form of taking hydrogen fuel and converting it into helium. When a star is done with hydrogen and doesn't have any anymore, it'll burn other things. It'll fuse other things, like helium can make it into carbon into nitrogen and oxygen into fluorine for a time, and then onward all the way to iron, which is number 26 in the periodic table, that nasty table that we so remember in college and high school. But that table is very important because every element in that table, almost, over 90 actually elements in that table of 118 were made in the hearts of stars. You are made of material that was built in a nuclear furnace inside a star at one point. I know that sounds strange, but it's actually true, because the stars, when they die, they will actually take themselves and obliterate themselves if they're big enough, like those big blue ones up there at the top left of the drawing. Or they will expand slowly and slough off their outer layers, like the ones marked right where you see the sun in the center of the diagram on down. Either way, they're releasing all these materials to the interstellar medium. And that's what the stars do. They have all these different colors, and the stars that are actually off that line, that snaky line down the center that we call the main sequence, you can see it labeled there. Those stars are giants and supergiants. What do I mean by supergiants? Well, let's take a look. All right, if we go to the constellation of Orion, this is Orion. You see the top left, you see an orange star. To the right, you see a blue star, and then a belt of 3. It's one of the most familiar constellations to all of you. All right. Now, I actually like Orion, but here, it was one of my favorite constellations. But here, I'm in Connecticut. I'll be in Arizona soon enough. And we're building a second observatory, actually, in Arizona. First one is here in Connecticut. The second one is going to go in Arizona. Both are going to be controlled at the same time from an undisclosed location. But still, it's going to be anywhere within 2,500 miles, because they'll be able to control it from anywhere. Now, when we look at these stars here, these are stars as photographed from a place like Arizona. All right. That upper left star that we're seeing up there, that's a star called Betelgeuse. You've heard about Betelgeuse in the news lately because Betelgeuse was dimming. And if you notice, in relation to the diagram, that arrow points to where Betelgeuse sits on that diagram. Betelgeuse is a supergiant star. All right. And if you put it where the sun was, it would go out well past the orbit of Mars and almost to Jupiter. Imagine a sphere big enough to encompass all that volume of space from where the sun is all the way past the orbit of Mars, nearly all the way to Jupiter. That's a big star. Okay. And what happens is that star, Betelgeuse, may go supernova sometime soon. And if it does, we estimate it has about 10,000 years left, but we can be plus or minus 50,000 years for all we know. It's 750 light years away. That means we're looking at Betelgeuse as it was 750 years ago. There's a mind game for you. Trying to figure out how far the stars are gives you a new perspective, because we are learning about how far away they are and how long the light takes to get here. That means that every single star you see in this picture, every single one of those white dots is a star. Every one of these dots came to us from a different distance. And that means that we're looking at one massive, in the universe, one massive time machine. We're always looking back in time. Even when we look at the sun, we're seeing our local universe 8 minutes ago. Because if the sun disappeared right now, pink, this talk would go on for about 8 minutes. And then all of a sudden you'd start getting calls. The sun's gone out. The sun's gone. The sun went out. But it would take 8 minutes. And the people on the day side of the earth would be seeing the sun, be feeling the warmth, and then it would go out. If it went out right now, it would be 8 minutes from now that it would go out for us here on the planet. Because it takes that long for the light from the sun to get here from there. So that's the universe. Now, sticking with Orion for a second, all right, we see that Betelgeuse is that star way up at the top of the diagram there. The arrow is pointing to its origin spot in the diagram. But then we have a star down here, like this one. This one's called Rigel. Rigel is a hot blue massive star. It would eat up the orbits of Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, almost Mars, and be as big in diameter as nearly the orbit of Mars. It's a very, very large star. Right? So it's also a giant star, but it's giant because of the fact that it's done processing its hydrogen. And now as other things start to fuse inside its core, it grows because the outward pressure of radiation is getting bigger, right? And getting higher. So it will expand it into a more massive star. Rigel is destined to be a supernova. Betelgeuse, that we just saw, is destined to be a supernova. And then we have the belt stars here in Orion. These are very, very hot blue stars. These are the supergiant blue stars, all destined to be supernovae, which are, of course, exploding stars. Now, if we look at these belt stars, all three of those belt stars, which from the left to the right are Alnilam, Alnitak, Alnilam, and then Mintaka. Yes, that's the names. Alnitak is the one that I'm actually pointing to with the arrow there. Okay. And then Alnilam is in the middle, and then Mintaka is at the end. Mintaka is actually the furthest away. But the weird thing is, back just 2 million years ago, when Australopithecus afarensis, we call it Lucy, right? Remember the early hominids, the precursor of humans. When Lucy was wandering around Olduvai Gorge in Africa, if Lucy looked up at Orion would not look the way it does now. It would only have one, maybe two belt stars in it. And all the rest of the stars would be there, but it would be missing the belt stars other than possibly one, most likely one. So it would look very different. The stars in the belt are very young. There's only 100 million years old, at the most. The star Mintaka is around 3.3 million years old. Lucy was actually 4 million years. So sorry about that. And so when we look at the belt stars, we actually see that if you went back in time, Orion wouldn't look much like it does now. It would be very different. So those hot blue stars, those O stars, those are what they're called. See the bottom scale there? It says OBAFGKM. That's in terms of the brightness, the temperature, the color. It goes from hot and large to cool and small to the right. And those O stars only last a short time, maybe a few 100 million years, and then they explode. There's no hope of planets around stars like that because they're too powerful. Most of the light they give off is in the ultraviolet, hence the blue light around me. I had red light, but Stacy said, I want blue. So, all right, I'll give her blue. So the blue light then that from these stars is mostly in the ultraviolet, which we can't see, but which is deadly to carbon-based life like us. Okay, so now when we look at the night sky, what is it that we see when we look up in the sky? Well, we know that we have lots of, recognizable things like this. This is a very recognizable object. It's an aircraft. But you might say, well, that doesn't look like any plane I've ever seen. But it would, I took this photo, but it would if you noticed that the exposure that the camera was taking was multiple seconds in time. Okay. And this particular exposure was 6 seconds. Now, how do I know that? Just by looking at the picture. I'll tell you, little secret. Okay. This is for the folks that are in the Mutual UFO Network, your field investigators, perhaps. And if you're not, this is all good information for all of you. You see the lights? Those lights represent the ones that are dots. Those represent instant flash light. Think like strobes, okay? We know that there's a red strobe on the belly of an aircraft. That's the red dot every so often. Well, the Federal Aviation Administration mandates that those belly strobes have to flash at a certain rate, once per second. Okay? So if it's flashing 60 times per second, you count the flashes. And there's a little extra at either end, and that adds up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 seconds. It's a 6-second exposure, see? Same thing with the strobes. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right? So we actually have those strobes and the belly strobes adding up for us to give us the right answers. So the lines are because of the constant the constant on recognition lights that are at the wingtips on these aircraft. All right. I can't tell you which kind of aircraft it is because I used to, but they changed the lighting to be more similar. So that changed. So I can't sound like a real big shot and know the actual aircraft. Not that I would, And before we get much further, I just want to welcome all of you, by the way, who are watching. I know I have a lot of friends in Arizona that are watching. I have friends elsewhere that are said they're going to watch. So I welcome all of you, and I thank you for indulging me. This is great. Now, moving on, okay, we look at aircraft, and as I said, they're recognizable, and these are the reasons that I just told you about. The wing lights, the red lights, okay, the belly strobes, as I mentioned, and then those strobes on the wingtips, okay. And that's, again, FAA guideline rules, okay. So I'll leave that there for you just to read it once and then move on. And that's what we see. Now, I took that picture when I saw the plane. I zoomed in a little bit and I took a photo. And now the other thing we see in the night sky are meteors. And meteors are really great. Okay. We also see satellites. We also see comets. Now, let's talk about meteors for a second. We just went through the Perseid meteor shower. We streamed it, and we really didn't see any. We had a cloudy night one night and a semi-clear night before, and we didn't get any Perseids. But what are meteors? Okay, meteors are little tiny bits of rock that make it into the Earth's atmosphere, dust mostly, and they come into the atmosphere, and they're almost 100 miles up, all right? And they can be a variety of colors. Those colors are determined by their composition. If their composition is of, say, nitrogen or oxygen, compounds that have nitrogen and oxygen in them, then the meteor might have a reddish hue to it. And you can see the rest there. Iron meteorites are very common, so we see yellow streaks throughout the sky. The Perseids are mostly iron meteorites, and you see them come in like that, and they're really flashes of yellow. And the rare meteors that have calcium in them will have that purple glow. They really do, and it's really oddball looking. And the sodium ones are they border on the reddish. They kind of look like the sodium vapor lamps color. And magnesium are the fun ones. If you can get any that have a dominant magnesium composition, then you'll actually see this really cool teal blue. And most people just see these objects in the sky, and they look white to them. If you capture them with a camera, you can actually see the color quite nice. It's pretty cool. All right. Now, they can be an instant streak through the sky, and they go like, oh, what was that? And by the time you tell someone, of course, it's long gone. Or they can be a streak with a persistent tail behind them. Or they can actually be something that lasts a long time in the sky, and you have time to not only look at it and point it out, but hand the binoculars to a friend and say, now look at that thing. Wow, that's pretty cool. And then you take the binoculars back and watch the rest of it. Those are called earth grazers, ones that actually cross horizon to horizon. And, you have time to watch them. But you got to keep in mind, they're moving tens of thousands of miles per hour as they come into the atmosphere. So as soon as they hit the atmosphere, the slightest number of molecules of atmosphere, they're going to get very hot very quickly, and they're going to start burning up. Now, I mentioned that they're mostly dust that you see. And that implies they're small. And for the most part, they are. The quick streaks you see for the Perseid meteor showers, go, or any meteor shower where you see the streaks of light. Oh, that was a cool meteor. You just missed it. You may not believe me when I tell you this, but those are the size of a grain of sand. Okay, no bigger. You see, there's a lot of energy liberated when something like a grain of sand sized particle hits the atmosphere at tens of thousands of miles an hour. Okay, and that is quite liberating, you might say, and you're going to get a lot of energy released in the form of heat, and the heat causes glow. The glow causes something you can see. Oh, look at that, So it's really interesting to see these. Now, there's also the meteors that not only leave a trail in the sky, but they're not earth grazers. They actually come in and hit the earth. Okay, one of them was this one here in 2013. It was a Chelyabinsk meteor, caught on many dash cams, caught on building security footage. I saw images when the meteor came in. It was so bright that it literally it was making shadows like a second sun traveling through the sky. And you saw the shadows moving. You saw the shadows moving as the meteor went by. Really spectacular. Look those up online. Look up Chelyabinsk. Okay, it's Chel. See that there? Chelya Binsk. Binsk. And when you look that up and look up the footage, security cam footage, Chelyabinsk, you'll see all these places. In fact, when it hit the atmosphere, it hit the upper atmosphere and started to ablate. That means burn, and left a trail behind it of burning debris, which you see there in the lower right. That trail of burning debris ended up depositing pieces and fragments of that meteor all along the trail down on the ground as it fell. However, when it hit enough atmosphere, the main body of this object, actually, it was about the size of a house, as you can see. And the main body of the object hit enough atmosphere so that this aerodynamic pressure on the meteor was enough to cause it to explode. All right. And if you're thinking about the Tunguska event, I sense that with my, quantum entanglement mind here. If you're thinking about Tunguska, the same thing happened there too. Whatever object that was that entered the Earth's atmosphere, it hit enough atmosphere that it became like a wall, and it just obliterated. And that obliteration at these speeds results in a lot of heat. This was a small object, right? And when it hit the wall of the atmosphere, the thicker atmosphere, it actually, when it exploded, it literally bent security doors, metal security doors, just like, and bent them in from the shockwave and blew them open. It blew out windows. It took garage doors and just blew them right off the right off their rails and blew them into the establishment. Okay, so this is a small meteor. Can you imagine something that is a little bit bigger? Okay, this was the size of a house. What about something the size of a city block? Maybe that was Tunguska. It leveled trees all the way around it for 40 miles. Farmers that were working in their fields saw the light, and then the heat shockwave hit them and burned the shirts off their backs. Now, this is not urban legend. This is actual fact. So that was probably a near brush with a comet that might have hit the Earth. That was the prevailing theory. You've heard about it being a UFO. You heard about nuclear explosions, blah, blah, blah. But Occam's razor basically says that whatever the simplest explanation is, it's probably more likely to be that than something way down the other end of the believability scale. Those of you who know me know that I totally believe that extraterrestrial life has made it to our planet. I think that they've been here for some time. I've had experiences I can't explain, but that doesn't mean I'm going to think that everything that happens is a UFO. We have to be hard on the data. That's the one thing I try to teach everybody when I talk about it. So meteors are an amazing phenomena in the Earth environment. All right. And sometimes they show us that the universe is very dynamic. I'll give you an example. Many of you know that I run this observatory and we stream live on the internet. It's called Skytour Livestream. Skytour, one word, Livestream, one word. We have like 4,400 subscribers and climbing. And we streamed the moon. And it was in a lunar eclipse. So the moon was a beautiful blood red. And at the time that happened, all right, this is an actual view from our Skytour Livestream screen. Here's the moon. You see the moon. And then down the lower left, in the red area of the moon, you see that white dot? We're one of 5 groups on the planet. 5 groups on the planet that actually saw a meteor strike the moon during the lunar eclipse back in January of 2019. That was January 20th of 2019. And it was 11:41 and 35 seconds. And that flash occurred. It's like, whoa, what was that? Could that have been a camera glitch? Sure. But was it? No. It was actually a 2-foot wide meteor that struck the moon. And all the way from the moon, we saw that light from it. How could that be? A 2-foot wide thing? That's not big. That's like about just this little bigger than this size right here, How come that shows us from 240,000 miles away? How could we possibly see that? The reason we can see it is because it was moving at several miles per second when it hit the moon. And it went from that speed to 0. And all of that energy of motion that we call kinetic energy was converted into the only other thing that it could be, and that was heat. And heat causes an incandescent cloud right at the site of the impact, and that is visible from many, many millions of miles if you could see it from that far away. If we saw one hit Mars, we'd probably actually be, if it hit Mars, we'd actually probably see a dot that appeared from Mars if we were looking at the time. So clearly, the universe is a dynamic place. Now, we also have satellites, and satellites, of course, are long trails in the sky, and they're generally slow moving, and they can be dim or bright. And I've heard, people say that I saw them moving together. There's a pair of them moving together. That can't be a satellite. I beg to differ. Actually, there's a lot of satellites that are actually designed to be in pairs in orbit, and even triplets. There's a certain Navy project I know of where they actually have 3. And unfortunately, people say, look, a triangle moving through the sky. And they send me video and you see 3 dots moving in the sky. And I can identify that as the remote sensing Navy project as well, because it was seen at the very same time that was supposed to be overhead. Now, why 3? Because that pattern, that triangular pattern, allows them to see the Earth from 3 different perspectives at the same time. And those 3 different perspectives give them a lot more information. All right. So it's enough. They're enough apart so they can actually get exact data, as much as I can say there. And so that process is something that is, I guess, a little unnerving to folks. It is for me too. I mean, what are they looking at, But I mean, I worked on a project for satellites that took me out to Gilbert, Arizona, quite a bit. I was out there every month. And I hadn't even met Marianne Robb yet. Okay. Well, now I have, and we're good friends. And she's helping me with the Western Observatory, Skytree Livestream West. And I was working on a satellite model out there that was a special project at the time. I couldn't talk about it, couldn't show anything about it. And I had to use all my connections to maintain the project. And, well, you get the picture. Well, anyway, I took that picture. I took lots of pictures of it, and I built special models of this satellite that went all over the world to special people. One was giant, about 3 feet across, and the others were all little ones that were maybe 22, 24 inches across. Well, that particular satellite is so powerful that when it looks down at the Earth, and I witnessed this directly, it could see someone's face from orbit. And if you're saying, no, sir, I saw it, okay, it can see someone's face. This is not any information that can't be told. This is stuff that's not in the public domain. But it could also read license plates easily. And you got to keep in mind, it's looking at a shallow angle. So as it's looking at this, what we call an oblique angle, it's going through more air, looking down at the ground to see these objects farther away, because you can't recognize someone's face by looking straight down on top of them. You got to have an angle. And so looking at it from a slant angle, it's called, will give you the exact look. And I inquired about this satellite because I realized it had some really high power capabilities. I assumed it was a spy satellite that I was working on. And that's what they led me to believe. But then the president of the company called me and said, hey, would you like to see who you were working for? I went, yeah. And I received a picture of the 2 gentlemen who were holding the satellite model we made here in my shop, which is just that way. And I was amazed to see that it was Sergey Brin and Larry Page, the Google guys. They were underwritten. They were underwritten to build this satellite for the government. Now, those of you that know about their shady tactics, that they got Moffett Field out in California almost rent free. They had office space for nothing. And they were paying dirt cheap prices for their 10 aircraft fleet. Why were they getting a special deal? Well, now you see why. Because they were in the government's pocket and they were building satellites probably at greatly reduced cost for the government. To take a little water. And so you see, so satellites are interesting, and they can move in pairs and triplets and all these things that we talk about here. And the most important thing is they don't twinkle, right? They just move slowly across the sky. Actually, that's about the rate too. They move about like this across the sky, and if someone tells you that, satellites don't dim out when they get overhead, or they go all the way to the horizon, that's patently false. That's not true. And if you think about it, I've been told, well, if they change color, then that's, that tells you it's not a satellite. Actually, it's expected that they'll change color as satellites, because if you think about it, from orbit, when a satellite dims out, it means it's crossing the Earth's terminator. It's going onto the night side from your point of view. Well, when we go into the night side here down on the planet, on the surface, what color is the sunlight? It's red, right? Well, up there, sunset exists too. So the satellite turns a yellowish red when it starts to dim out. And that's an exact sign that it's a satellite. I mean, it's pretty clear. So in other words, a little injection of science will help you determine the difference between what might be a satellite and what might be something other than a satellite. What satellites don't do is this. They don't go like make a 90-degree turn. If you can see something make a 90-degree turn and catch it on film, please don't just say it did it. Just catch it on film, okay? There's no film anymore. You know what I mean? Capture it on your cameras, you know? Then we have something, okay? I saw a photo a number of years ago of an object way up in space, and I knew it was in space, and it was actually circulating like this. It was making a circular motion, okay, an ever-widening spiral. And you might think that it was maybe a high-altitude aircraft or something, but I found out later it was actually a black project that was actually something that we created. And, you know, as soon as it's a man-made project, human-made project, I say, I lose interest. You know, yeah, I work in that arena for the Navy, but you know what? My business is one thing. I do those models for them, but I don't try to overlap the UFO business with that. It makes no sense to me, you know? So it is what it is. It is what it is. So that's satellites. Now, the other thing is, when you see the satellites, you know, they have a tendency to look a certain way if you photograph them. If you photograph them, they might look like this. And you can see this. You can see this right here. All right. There's a photo of a satellite, but you'll say, wait, I've seen photos like that look like it was a meteor. Well, yes, there are some that look like that, but when meteors come into the atmosphere, they also leave there's a flash just before they go out. All right. And that flash is when they burst, and then all the little particles burn up. And so you see a streak come in, and then a flash, and then it goes out. So it's more like it's not the same all the way along the way. This is clearly a satellite, but not just any satellite. This is something called an Iridium Flasher. Now, unfortunately, we don't have Iridium Flashers to look at anymore because the Iridium Fleet, or Constellation as they call it, has been decommissioned, and most of them are being brought down. That is to say, they're being deorbited. Now, what does that mean? It means that they take what remaining fuel they have on board, and they fire it. They fire the fuel such that it'll go around the Earth a couple more times or several times, and in a decaying orbit. And when it finally enters the Earth's atmosphere to burn up, they manage to do it so that these satellites fall in the same place. If you can ever get to the southern Indian Ocean, okay, I mean this now. If you can ever get to the southern Indian Ocean, you can check out the satellite graveyard. Oh yeah, start an expedition as long as no satellites are falling, because then all of a sudden all around you you'll see splashes of stuff, debris. But it's a satellite graveyard. All the old satellites that are deorbited are there, and there's a giant pile of them underneath the water. If you can get there and take those pieces out, you could sell them on eBay. Oh my gosh, the money you'd make. This was in orbit for 12 years, you know. I think that's a good idea. Anybody got a boat? I'm sorry, just asking. Anyway, so in this photo, there's something else too that's rather interesting. You can see there's a streak right at the arrow, but then down by the tree, you see another little bluish object in the sky. Do you see that? That takes us to the next object that we're talking about. Okay, comets. This Iridium Flasher also happened at the same time that there was a comet coming by. And the comet was fairly bright. You could see it with binoculars. But now we just had a comet come through here. And Skytree Livestream imaged it and made a movie of it. And I'm going to show it to you next. This was the comet called NEOWISE, Neowise. And that means Near Earth Object, and then the Wide Infrared Survey Explorer. That was a telescope put up in orbit that was meant to look for near Earth objects in its later years. It was tasked with doing that. And comets fell into that category as well, because we know that there are some comets that we still consider a danger to us down the line, but I can't tell you which ones in particular, because I don't have what's called the Sentry list up and facing me right now. It's the list of objects that are still too early to tell if they're a danger to us, but they're on the list anyway. So here is the image that we took. Oh, I can't believe that the image is off the bottom of the screen like that. But if you look carefully, you can actually see the comet's head is actually moving away from the stars. This we did all in one night, okay, over the course of about an hour. That's how much the comet moved through the sky. And those dashes, those lines you see going through, those are satellites that were caught with each. Thanks for trying that. Oh, there we go. That worked better. You can see that the cometary head's moving by those two stars. So that's the direction it was actually moving. Now, if you look at the tail, you'll see that the tail has this dusty thing which is going off to one side like that. Okay. But then it has a straight one that's going right up. You see that right next to it? That's called the ion tail. That's a tail that was just always facing away from the sun. And with all comets, the ion tail always faces away from the sun. And comets usually have more than one tail. They always have a dust tail, which we see on the right there, and the ion tail. Well, the dust tail and the ion tail point in different directions, as you can see, because the ion tail is always pointing directly away from the sun, and the dust tail is slightly, it points away from the sun too, but it's being dragged around by the actual mass of the particles that are actually coming off the comet. And that's what we see right there. All right. And this video I made is until it got into the trees, I couldn't do it anymore. But we made this, when Neowise was just entering the evening sky. So it had already gone around the sun, and it was starting to head back out. So it's not heading down. It looks like it's heading down. It's actually heading out. And it looks out, as it's heading out, it's getting smaller, not in this image, but over time it was getting smaller and going further away. The world is in 3 dimensions. Space is in 3 dimensions. So getting your 3D bearings in the sky can be challenging if you've never done it before. You're not expected to do that, and it won't be on the test. I promise. Okay. Now, I think Stacy is still having me come out for the boot camp in November. So if there's any comments available, I don't think there will be, but we will view really cool stuff, and I'll be giving people an astronomy class, much like this one, when we get out there in under the stars, of course. So it'll be great. So those are comets, all right? And the comets are interlopers. Now, we think that maybe a comet is what hit us when the Tunguska explosion occurred, and that would explain why there was no remnants on the ground that we could see, because the comet is basically made of ices in its nucleus. It's very, very icy. You've got carbon dioxide ices, you've got ammonia ices, methane ices, you've got all these things, and plus water ice as well. And when it hits the atmosphere, that stuff's going to explode when it hits the atmosphere at such high speed. And it won't leave a crater. It'll just make a shock wave. Chelyabinsk, the other, was a meteor. That was a rock from space, the size of a house. That crashed, and that landed in a lake. And they retrieved part of it already. See, so that was something solid that was retrievable. This is not. So we have comets, we have satellites, and we have meteors, okay? So what about the constellations and other star anomalies? What can we look for? Well, this is kind of cool. We talk about the charts of the sky, right? So when we look at, for instance, the fall sky, this is coming up, all right? We see this object right in the center of the screen. You have to understand that what we're looking at here is the entire sky as seen looking from, say, just directly overhead to the southern horizon. That's this one. All right, then we'll do directly overhead looking to the northern horizon. But we're going to see almost directly overhead in the northern hemisphere, we're going to see this great square of Pegasus, the flying horse. And to its left, you see those stars going up like that. Okay, those stars are the stars of Andromeda. I wish I had a cursor that I could use. I thought I would, and that it doesn't show any of this. So I gotta. I guess I can't use my cursor. I would love to have pointed it out to you. Kind of like a laser pointer, So that said, the Great Square is going to dominate our fall sky. All right. And then down below, we have the constellation of Pisces, which you won't be able to pick out even from a dark sight because Pisces is made of somewhat dim stars. The Great Square of Pegasus, though, you will. And Andromeda, to its upper left, has a special feature. If you go up to those first two stars, all right, that you see in there off of the Great Square of Pegasus, where we're at the upper left star in Pegasus, if you go up those first two stars and they go up a little more into the sky, if you draw a line between those two stars and go up off that band of two stars coming off, you'll see a faint object with your eye. And that's the Andromeda Galaxy, 2 million light years away. And what does that mean? It means that you're seeing it 2 million years ago. And the Andromeda Galaxy is actually heading for us, which is really kind of cool. In a couple billion years, it'll be here. And look out, man, you better pack. Oh, wait, no, you don't have to. You know why? It's not going to matter. We won't even notice it. This massive galaxy with over 1 trillion stars, we have about 100 billion to 150 billion, maybe 200 billion at the outside. It's going to just go right through us, okay? And orbits will change, some things will change, the entire morphology and shape of the galaxy will change. But we won't notice it. And it won't be because we're gone or not here. We won't notice it because it happens so long over such a period of time that it's not going to have any ill effect on us overall. Stars won't collide and hit each other and go boom. That's not what happens. We might actually have a mingling of the stars, and when they mingle with each other, maybe they'll orbit each other or do something like that, but they certainly won't do anything that would cause our solar system to be destroyed. Likely, I mean, there is an outside chance that maybe something can happen, but it doesn't look likely. So that's the fall sky looking to the south, and that's coming up. And then the fall sky looking to the north, right? We see that we're going to have the Little Dipper right in the middle there, and you see the arrow I drew down there, the blue arrow. You see the Big Dipper down below. Well, those two end stars in the ladle of the Big Dipper there, those point right to the North Star, and that's kind of cool to do if you haven't done it before. And so in the fall, the Big Dipper will be, and let's say this is like, say, 9 p.m. Okay, the Big Dipper is going to be down below the North Star like this, and that's the Little Dipper that it's below. Okay, and then the winter sky after that, we're going to have Orion. All right, and I circled the Pleiades up there just to the right of center, because the Pleiades are the 7 sisters. And we image the Pleiades quite a lot, actually, and we see lots of nebula associated with the Pleiades, blue reflection nebula, as a matter of fact. And then we have the winter sky. You see Orion down there, which we saw at the beginning, all right? And we have Auriga. Now, Auriga is really up in the northern sky, but again, we're looking again from directly overhead down to the southern horizon, directly overhead down to the southern horizon. And that's what we're seeing right here, okay? So when we actually turn it around, okay, we'll see when we go to the next slide, we'll see that we're looking at it in reverse, okay? So now we see, now from Auriga, all right, we look and we see, here's the Little Dipper again down here, right there, and now you see that blue arrow again pointing, and the Big Dipper is now on the right side, okay, when we start winter, okay? I say at 9 p.m., that's where the Big Dipper will be, okay? Now, this all has to do with the way we're going around the sun, all right? And then the way the Earth is rotating, of course, which is never changing. And so this gives us our sky at night, because the nighttime side of the Earth, as the Earth goes around in its orbit, okay, and we'll use my little 3D printed moon here as an example, as the Earth goes around in its orbit, and orbits like this, it rotates, of course, but as it goes around its orbit, it's facing outward. As it goes around, if I'm the sun, okay, it faces outward as it goes around, and it's pointing out at different stars all year round at night. See? So there are times when these stars will be in the daytime sky. And then there's times where these stars will be in the nighttime sky. Because as the Earth goes around the sun, it's always pointing away on its night side, it's pointing away toward different stars all year round. And that's why we have a different set of stars all year round, because we're looking at a different region of space as the sun sets. All right. So that's the winter sky toward the north. Now, as we look toward the, let me do it. Did I do south? Yeah, I did. Okay. All right. So now in the spring sky, all right, we see a different thing. Dominating directly overhead is going to be Leo the Lion in the northern hemisphere. All right. That's in the center. In Leo looks like a triangle at the back end with a sickle shape at the front. That's the classic shape of Leo the Lion. This location, Leo the Lion and Virgo to its left, these two locations are a location for the most unbelievable number of galaxies. Springtime is galaxy season. It is for Sky Tour Livestream when we do our observatory, and it is for all amateur astronomers and professional astronomers alike. Okay, when we look at Virgo, we see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of galaxies. We look in Leo and we see hundreds and hundreds of galaxies as well. Some of the most famous galaxies are there. In fact, in Virgo, actually just above Virgo in Coma Berenices, there's another set of galaxies as well. But in Virgo, there's one particular galaxy that is very important to us. Why? Because it's a galaxy within which we actually imaged for the first time in human history a black hole. Okay, who said it out there? Somebody must have said it. Someone knew. Someone knew. I know you did. And a black hole was imaged in the center of this galaxy, and it's called an SMBH, a supermassive black hole. Astronomers love acronyms, and we love to confuse you. Okay, so that's why I'm here. I'm here to unconfuse you and make it, something that you can understand, because you're certainly not unintellectual, but you may not know astronomy. So you want to get an explanation to help you along, and then before long, I'll be asking you questions. You'll be helping me out. See, so that's how it works. So the supermassive black hole in the middle of this galaxy was found, and they imaged it using a special telescope. And I'm going to show you with this, my 3D printed moon again. Okay, let's say this was the Earth. Okay, if we had a telescope here, here, and here. Okay, and as the Earth rotated, and we imaged out at the sky, as the Earth rotated, it'll sweep out a band of observations with the telescope. Okay, that band of swept out observations is precisely what we did, but about 8 times with 8 different places on the Earth, and managed to image this galaxy. And we came up with a crude, I say we, collective astronomers came up with a crude but effective way of imaging the galaxy's supermassive black hole as if the Earth was an 8,000-mile diameter telescope. Now, that's called the Event Horizon Telescope program. And we were able to image this black hole this way. Well, guess what they're doing now? See, at the middle of our galaxy, we have a black hole as well, a supermassive black hole. And that supermassive black hole here is being imaged by the Event Horizon Telescope as well. So for the first time in history, we're going to get a real ringside seat to what's going on, let me tell you. So we're looking forward to that. I can tell you that. So these are the skies of spring. That's the southern sky. Again, from top down to the horizon. Leo is going to be at the top, and this is looking to the north. All right. And these constellations, again, Leo and Virgo and Coma Berenices, Berenices Hare, Coma Berenices. These are areas where you have more galaxies than anywhere else in the sky. It's really phenomenal. But there's very rarely any case where you're going to find few galaxies. Okay, there seem to be everywhere. For those that do Sky Tour live stream with us who've been who are watching this, we sometimes do indoor streams where we actually take people through a tour of the universe dynamically using a special tool that we use to show different locations. Hold on. Oh, that's great. Excuse me. Different locations, as seen from this perspective of traveling through space. And that is a tool called Space Engine. You can get a free version. We use the pay version because you get much higher definition stuff. We can scoop, go right across the craters of the moon. And hey, if you want next time, we'll do that. We'll do a space engine fun tour if you like for the next time. So keep that in mind, Stacy, if you want to do it again. And so when we do that, you actually see that there are so many galaxies out there that when you get far enough outside our own galaxy, you think you're looking at stars again. Billions of stars. But you're not. You're looking at about 2 trillion galaxies, each of which, and they're all in there. They're all modeled, by the way, in this program. All of which are absolutely stunning. Okay. And you can go into them, dive through them, go through. Oh, anyway, that's for another time. But we will do that. I promise. So the spring sky toward the north, again, the Big Dipper now at 9 p.m. is over the North Star. So you can see how it's acting like a clock. It's a seasonal clock. Tick, 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 4 times, right? So that's what happens. So now the summer sky is interesting too, because the summer sky is one, and this is looking south. We have all these constellations here, but among them, Hercules, which is a late spring constellation, has a really cool globular cluster right in the upper part. There's the upper part that looks like a trapezoid in that constellation. On the right side, just over halfway up that line on the right hand side of that, it's called the keystone, that little trapezoidal shape, is a globular cluster called Messier 13. It's the most stunning collection of over 50,000 stars, and it looks like an exploding snowball of stars. It's just beautiful. And when we look at Lyra over on the left, and Cygnus and Aquila, these are constellations that we call the stars of summer, and we see this triangular object that not visually, but it's the 3 brightest stars in the summer that form what's called the summer triangle. In Cygnus, the swan up there on the top, that bright star is called Deneb, D-E-N-E-B, and that star on the right is called Vega, V-E-G-A. Vega, we think, has a planetary system forming around it, incidentally. And then we have Altair down below, which is at Aquila the Eagle, okay, in that constellation. So that's the summer sky. And we'll be going through that more, I think, in November as well, because we'll be able to, show a little bit of that as the sun is setting. Probably, not sure. We'll see what the location is. Okay, and then looking north, okay, if you look, you see the Ursa Minor, that is to say the Little Dipper there, just below center. And to its left, you see the Big Dipper. And I didn't bother drawing the blue arrow because now you know those 2 end stars in the bowl. Draw a line through and you get them right to the North Star. I never get lost on the planet. I never get lost. As long as I can see the sky, I can find my way day or night. And I'll teach you how to do that too if you ever want to do any of that type of, they used to call it orienteering. But, as an astronomer, we just learn to understand the sky. And depending on where you are on the planet, the sun will be a certain elevation at a certain time. You know some basics, and you can figure out where you are, probably within 150 miles, which I guess isn't saying much if you're really thirsty or something or out of water. But what do I know? I mean, it's just a little thing. Anyway, so let's now talk about some fun stuff. Say you want to look at all this stuff on your phone. And here's the reason I didn't go through the constellations in such detail. Because you're going to do it. Yes, you are going to do it as well. And here's how. If you want to look at all these things in your phone, all you have to do is go out and get these apps. One of them is called Sky Guide. This is an actual screenshot from my copy of Sky Guide. And look at how detailed that is. It's an actual shot. You can actually zoom in. You can pinch zoom all these things and zoom to your heart's content. It's really amazing. All right. And this is an example. You zoom in on Orion, okay? And this is the belt of 3 stars up there on the left side. All right. You see the Horsehead Nebula down below the Alnitak there, which is the one right below the word Horsehead. Okay. That star. And then just to the lower right of that, you can see a little tiny black thing. That's the Horsehead Nebula. And then you see down to the right edge, you actually see the Orion Nebula, the brightest nebula in our sky. That's because it's close to us. That's a stellar nursery giving birth to stars as we speak. It's really cool. And then and that's Sky Guide. Sky Guide, I think it's not really that expensive. Some of the apps I'm telling you about are free, some are not. You have to check the price. But there's an add-on that I subscribe to for Sky Guide called Supermassive. And you can pinch zoom. You can pinch zoom about maybe 3 or 4 times regularly. But when you have Supermassive in, you can go and go and go and go and go. And you can get right down to the single star levels in here and with nothing around. I mean, it's really, really good. Okay, so that's Sky Guide. I think it's available on both Android and the iPhone. You have to check. Okay, the next thing is if you want to see about satellites, you got to have GoSat Watch. I know, strange name. GoSat Watch shows you the night sky at a glance, shows you where all the satellites are, and you look down below there and you can actually see the parameters for the satellite. How high are they going? What's their angle? Where are they located? How far away are they from you? How close are they going to come to us? And when do they rise? When do they set? And by the way, how fast are they moving? Okay, 17,212 miles per hour. I can tell you exactly how high they are just from that. You know, that's a calculation we actually do live in the observatory to show folks when a satellite comes through based on the length of the trail and how long the exposure was. We can tell you how high up that satellite was because it has to go a certain speed to maintain a certain orbit. And that's the dead giveaway when we're looking at it. So GoSat Watch is really cool. And this is the list, what they call the passes, when the satellites pass. Okay, you can see at the top there it says SL16RB. RB stands for rocket booster. Space junk. Okay, space junk. Cosmos 1844 down below there. That's a Soviet weather satellite. Okay, so then you see the Iridium, one of the Iridiums, and those you won't see anymore on GoSat Watch because those are being deorbited. And so it goes on, and you get sometimes hundreds a night, and sometimes you only get maybe 10 a night satellites. It depends on the time of year, how the orbits are lining up with where you are. It's specific to your location, and it is so exact that you can set your watch by it. Frankly, it's really, really quite good. Okay, and that's GoSat Watch. Now, if you are interested in doing any kind of astronomy and you want to go to a dark spot, you'll notice I picked some Arizona stuff here. This is an app called, of course, you can see it, Dark Sky. And Dark Sky shows you this color map of the light. And this is giving us what's called the Bortle scale. In the center of Phoenix, it's going to be an 8 to 9, probably a 9, where that's white. That means you ain't seeing stars. In fact, you might not even see Jupiter if it's in the sky, depending on the hazes. Okay, or fires. Okay, I know there's some brush fires. But moving down the scale, okay, you can see that, 6 to 7, 4 to 5. We're in, right where we are, we're at about a 4. Okay, here in this current location in Connecticut. We're at 4. We can see the Milky Way. All right. Then going down farther lower, it goes down to a 3 to 4, and then a 1 and 2 are, of course, ideal. Now, for those of you going on the MUFON camping trip, your Bortle skies are going to be a 1 to 2. Oh, yes, I checked it out. And unfortunately, I can't make it this year. I thought I could. I can't do it, unfortunately. But then again, I'm going to have an observatory in the Sonoran Desert that's going to show us amazing things. We're building that building next month, actually. So I'm very happy to mention that. And then now these red pins that you see on the screen, there's one red pin there, and there's one just barely peeking on the screen on the right side. These are locations that other people have reported as dark sky. In other words, this is a community app. Okay. Now, I'm not reporting the location of Skytree Livestream West because we're going to have many thousands of dollars of equipment out in the middle of a building in Arizona, and I don't want that. I don't want to have to worry about security too much. We will have security on site, but we're not going to have. We're not going to go crazy. Just one armed crazy guy. Saying, "Who are you?" That kind of thing. Like Yosemite Sam or something. Anyway, but rough idea where we are. This is about where Skytree West is going to be. It's going to be a little bit southwest of Wickenburg, and you'll notice it's not in a darker area. It's still in like a purple, like a 3, a 2 to actually a 3.5 Bortle area for brightness. Why would we do that? Why not just go to like, just like southeast of Baghdad or west of Prescott there? Why would we do this? The reason is because we broadcast this live observatory. I want to see you go east of Baghdad, west of Prescott there, and find internet. You can do satellite internet, all right, for sure. But what are you going to do for power? What if you have to go maintain the observatory? What are you going to do for water? I mean, a shower, set up an RV on the property, sure, but then you got to have property out there to do this. We actually are very fortunate that we have been allowed to go onto the property of a very close friend, and the observatory is being built there, and we will be able to monitor the property and offer a semblance of security to anyone going there as well. So that's why there, and our skies are gorgeous. Toward the east, you can see a light dome. We call it a light dome. You can see a little bit of a light dome of Phoenix out there. We don't like it, but guess what? That's the east. Things rise in the east and set in the west. So when something rises we want to see in the east, don't worry. It's going to be going overhead and all the way down to the western horizon over the course of the next several months. So we will have plenty of time to see it. And it really is beautiful out there. So that's where we're located. All right. Skytree Livestream East is about 75 feet from me that way. It's just out there in the front lawn. Yes, I have an observatory dome on my front lawn. You can imagine I'm sort of the talk of the town, and it's not all good. Who's that guy? He's got that blight going on in the front of his lawn, I tell them it's a giant composter. What do they know? They know different now. Anyway, so that's the app Dark Sky. Do get it. It's a great app. Okay, so we talked about, come on, I'm already forgetting. Sky Guide, GoSat Watch, and Dark Sky so far. We're not done. Okay, because after Dark Sky, and this is an example showing you the Bortle 8 and 9 skies in the Phoenix Mesa area. Sorry, Stacy, but you're in Bortle 8 or 9. And going to the upper right there, near Rio Verde, you have to go many miles away out past Fountain Hills, and you're still going to be in Bortle 4 to 5 skies out there, about 4 skies. And you really have to go out to the Tontos to actually see some truly dark skies. So we're very fortunate to be able to do this and still have power, still have water, and still have internet transmission that can get us to any high rates of speed that we need, because we're streaming an awful lot of data up, and we managed to do a test out in the desert. We're getting all that we need there. It was great. Okay, so Dark Sky, get it, enjoy it, love it. I do. Then if you want to go to the moon, who doesn't? Do you want to go to the moon? I do. I love the moon. Well, that's a lie. I'm an astronomer. I hate the moon. When the moon comes up, it's like, oh, the moon's on. I can't show people nebulae. So what I did was I bought these special filters for the telescope. And these special filters allow us to just eliminate the moonlight. I took photos of very faint nebulae with a full moon and thought, these will never come out. And they came out beautiful, glorious. I was like, oh, I have finally gone to heaven. I don't care whether the moon is out anymore. And so I actually printed, that's why I printed one in 3D, because I thought it was kind of cool, we make these things available. People can get them. So Moon Globe HD is one where you can actually get the moon in 3D and rotate it around to see all these different places, or you can look at it like a telescope sees it and see it just like it is. And you can actually set it up to show you where the terminator is, that the light and dark separation. So just like you see it in the sky. And that'll help you if you're looking through a telescope, or if you want to do some studies of it. You can see which crater is that crater that's making that weird light that people are saying is a UFO. That's a UFO. That's not natural. What's that bright spot? It's lights in a crater. Actually, it's the rim of the other side. I'm sorry to say, because I can tell from this application. And Moon Globe HD will show you all that. It's actually a great, if you're into MUFON, if you're into the Mutual UFO Network and you're a field investigator, that's a great tool to have, especially when people send you moon photos. Okay, because you can use this to find out when they saw it, what the moon looked like right at that time, and what anomalies might present themselves to you. Very helpful. Great toolbox. And if you're not into MUFON, if you're not in MUFON and you're just watching this because you love astronomy, get it anyway, man. It's a lot of fun. You can impress all your friends. Be the life of the party. Hey, let's go see Frank. You see his phone? He always got the moon on there. Yeah. Cool stuff. So anyway, so Moonglobe HD is great. And you can also see on Moonglobe HD, you can see all the locations, although not to the level of detail that you can on another site that I'm going to tell you about, but I don't have up here. You can see the locations of the past Apollo landings and the other human presence landings, okay, on the moon. Really good stuff. If you really want to see the moon in detail, I mean, utter total detail, you can always go look at our streams where I teach you about the quick map from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter Program Office. What's that? You look up LRO Quick Map, all one word, QUICKMAP, Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, LRO Quick Map. And you're going to see the University of Arizona come up. And because they're the ones that curate this data. And then you're going to go in and you're going to be astonished because you'll be able to zoom into the moon and zoom and zoom and zoom until you can see objects on this ball 240,000 miles away that are only 15 feet across. That means you see all of the lunar modules, the descent stages. You see the tracks from the rovers and the feet of the astronauts, of their trails. You can see, in some cases, you can actually see the shadow of the flags, which are sticking straight up toward the satellite, but the shadow is sticking out, and you can see the shadow of the flags in some cases. And guess what else? Now, this is something people don't often think about, but when you actually went to, when you go to look at the moon, when we went to the moon, the astronauts actually took us and they were taking the moon on the lunar modules. The ascent stage popped off the moon, went up to the command module, and that ascent stage was then let go, and it circled the moon and circled the moon and circled the moon, and then hit the moon at a very glancing angle where it then broke apart and scattered all over. You can see the debris field of those also. Really cool stuff. So the last app that we're talking about here is Exoplanet. Exoplanet is an app which allows you to see all of the found planets around other stars. As you know, I'm an astronomer, but I also am an exoplanet guy. That's the title of my book is The Populated Universe, and it discusses the finding of extraterrestrial life in the universe. And it's based on the statistical probabilities that we see with exoplanets. Okay, now that doesn't mean it's all math, because it's not. Okay, we know that Tara, who is in Phoenix MUFON, Tara edited my book for me, and she really got a lot out of it. And she didn't know a whole lot about astronomy to begin with, but when she read the book, she thought it was, understandable, and she enjoyed it. So that's someone who has often said that she liked the book, and I'm humbled by that. Okay. The audiobook is being done as well. We have an ebook. It's an ebook format on Amazon. It's a 5x9 format, and it's the oversized 8.5 by 11 size and full color on Amazon as well. And then the ebook is being done by none other than I guess I can let the cat out of the bag here, Carol Carl, who is a KGRA radio host and has a beautiful reading voice. I got a sample chapter the other day, and I listened to it, and I couldn't stop listening to it. Yes, I wrote the words, but to hear her say it, she had the emphasis right in the right places. Oh, what a pleasant listen. I'm telling you, she has a real angelic voice, and it's just a beautiful way to read a book like this, which could easily, put you to sleep. But it's actually, every book has a chance of boring you, right? But this one, with her in charge, I don't think it will. So anyway, the book is about Populated Universe, is about exoplanets and the finding of extraterrestrial life. So you may want to check it out. It's on Amazon. And this is another view with an exoplanet. And Hanno Rain, who did this, I discussed a few things with Hanno. He did a beautiful job taking this public domain database, which is always maintained, and putting it into an app for the iPhone. I'm not sure about Android, but I'm sure there's some. So that said, with our public outreach, this is the Skytree Livestream Observatory here in Connecticut. That's an actual sky, not a fake one. That's the Milky Way, the summer Milky Way behind it. We look at all kinds of things. When it's clear, we do looks at all these objects in the sky. And I hosted, and I have 2 co-hosts. I have Amanda Curran from Nova Scotia, and I have Daryl Mason from Colorado. And Daryl and Amanda and I will take people through the amazing wonders of the night sky. We take pictures, and we show them photos. We do processing after the fact, so no one has to sit through that. We just show them the beautiful objects. Boom, 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 boom. Last night we did it. We went and we probably saw 8 to 10 different objects that we checked out. It was beautiful, fun time. And the telescope's fully remote. I used to be in the dome, but 20 below zero sometimes was just too much to bear. That's why Arizona, yes, I'm coming to you. I'm coming to a town near you. So that said, you can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and we're also on Astro Imaging Live, where we are with Bill New York Skywatcher, who does meteors, wide view meteor shots, and nightly clear night watches of the sky for meteors. And we're on there with P&K Space Imaging, Keith and Paul, who do the moon specifically and planets. And then there's us. And you can go into each stream if we're all going at the same time and pop in and out of each one, leave chat messages, chat with us. It's actually fairly well fleshed out now, and we really enjoy it. So this is giving an idea of Skytree Livestream's greatest hits. And I'm not sure about the timing. I think we're getting close, aren't we? Someone has to come on and give me an idea here. So Stacy or Alejandro, wake up, guys. Wake up. Shh. Come on. There we go. There's Alejandro.
Yeah, I guess you've got a few minutes, about 10 if you want, I guess.
Okay. What about that? Oh, so I went over an hour, I think. So
you did, so you might be in trouble, but we'll give you another 10 if you like.
Okay. If anyone has any questions, let me know.
Then you better not get us both in trouble.
I won't. Just don't tell the teacher. We looked at this last night. This is the Bubble Nebula. One of our Skytree live stream listeners and viewers actually asked by name for the Bubble Nebula, and we showed her the Bubble Nebula. And so this was for Isabella, who asked, and we do take requests, and we steer the telescope, all a few hundred pounds of it, to all these different objects in the sky, so people can be in charge and tell me what they want to see. And if it's up, we'll check it out. Okay. And then this was another nebula called the Pac-Man Nebula. You can almost see it. Waka, 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 waka there, right? And here's the Dumbbell Nebula. This is a nebula showing us a star that had died, and it had sloughed off its outer layers and made this beautiful blue and red nebula in the sky. And we talk about what that means, what it's made of, and how it happened, all during Skytree Livestream. Then this is probably many people's favorite. This is the Andromeda Galaxy that we just talked about earlier tonight. This, we have several scopes in the dome, and this was a wide field scope that checked this out. Now, you might think that we had to take a long exposure because these things are somewhat faint, right? Well, we use a camera that's actually very high end, and this photo right here that you're looking at was a 30-second shot. 30 seconds, right? And as you can see, I'm hoping that I did my homework on the tools that we use to bring this stuff to you. And so this Andromeda Galaxy is beautiful. You can see these dark lanes going through the center like that. Those are actually dark dust that promotes star formation. The most new stars form in this disk, which you can see is a slight blue in this image. And that's what it really looks like. So yeah, and then it has 2 companion galaxies above and below. Well, we have 2 companion galaxies too. They're just dwarf galaxies. They're kind of weird looking. We call them the Magellanic Clouds. Okay. This is the North America Nebula. This is directly overhead at sunset right now. And you can't see it with your eye, but you can see it with a telescope. This is another view we did here. This is the Pleiades, the famous Pleiades that we've talked about. This is the winter constellation. That blue you're seeing, those are nebulae that are reflected light coming from the stars, these big bright blue hot B stars that are really just points of light. They're not big and round like that. They're only points of light. They just happen to be very intense. So on the camera sensor, they bloat. On any camera sensor, they do. But they're actually little tiny dots, very, very fine points of light. That's all stars ever are. Okay, if you can find the smallest dot in there, that's what those big ones look like, but just more intense. Think about that. That's kind of weird, huh? All right, but that's how it works. Okay, here is a constellation. I'm sorry, this is an object in the constellation of Sagittarius. It's called the Lagoon Nebula, and it's directly south at sunset right now. Okay, right this minute, it's directly south. Not tonight, of course, it's cloudy, but the Lagoon Nebula is powered by this hot O star. Remember I talked about the belt stars of Orion? They're these bright O stars. Well, to the right of center there, you can see the brightest part of the nebula is a little tiny star right there. That's actually the O star that's illuminating a great deal of parts of this nebula. And then that cluster just to the left of center of stars, that's something that was born there, because this is a stellar nursery. Many of these red clouds of gas out there that are glowing because of the hot star's radiation are, of course, born there. That's their nature. Then we have the famous Orion Nebula, which we'll see before long. I hate to say winter's coming, but it's stunning. And this exposure right here was 11 seconds long. That's it. We didn't need to go any longer than that. Okay, but again, we're actually have a very high-end camera. So, space telescopes also show us some great views. And just give you a couple of image comparisons, okay? Here's the Horsehead Nebula. It's beautiful, isn't it? This is one of the best ground-based telescope observations. This is not ours, okay? But let me show you what the Hubble Space Telescope shows us for the Horsehead Nebula. That's the Horsehead Nebula, according to Hubble. Check it out. Isn't that amazing? What a difference an atmosphere makes, huh? Get above the atmosphere and look what you can see. Amazing details, okay? Just amazing. Now, this is the Sombrero Galaxy. This is a galaxy that, of course, looks like a sombrero. That's why it's named that. And this is the Earth-based photo, but here is the space-based photo. Now, you might think, well, that doesn't look that much different. Look at the detail in that dust ring around the middle, okay? Here's the detail of that. Look at that. Now we're talking about something that's a little bit more detailed, and that's, again, thanks Hubble, okay? Here is a ground-based Whirlpool Galaxy shot. The Whirlpool Galaxy is, let's see, right around there at sunset. It's actually about there, and it's a galaxy that has a companion galaxy. That's what that little tail is on the left. Okay, but look at what Hubble thinks it looks like. Look at that. Every one of those red things are basically an Orion Nebula or a Lagoon Nebula, a stellar nursery. I mean, that is wicked cool, let me tell you, right? And then this telescope shot here we took, this is actually the Crab Nebula. It's an exploded star. It's in Taurus. That's coming up in the winter. We'll see it again. All right. And this is what Hubble thinks it looks like. In fact, this is what it looks like to Hubble. Look at the difference in detail. Again, all because of the atmosphere. I want to get above the atmosphere. Oh, yeah. Oh, jeez. I want to rent time on the Hubble. Ooh, that's an idea. Anyway, so then we had the Lagoon Nebula. This is the one we took before I showed you. But look what Hubble views it as. Look how Hubble sees it. Look at this amazing detail. Is this not incredible? It's just absolutely incredible. You see all this dust. And so this is actually an infrared photo shot, by the way. Infrared photo shot, not Photoshop. Okay. It was taken in the infrared, and you can actually see this tremendous dust and how it's moving and circulating. Little globules of dark nebula that are in there, where stars and whole star systems with their planets might actually be forming. Okay, and speaking of forming solar systems, here's one that might actually be a forming star system right there. That little isolated blob near the upper part, and then down below you have another nebula. That stuff right there is there. Those are more than a light year from each other. Okay, but we're talking about massive objects that end up coalescing down to smaller objects. All right. So at this point, if you have any questions, let me know. I'm all done. Yay. And I know you're happy. You said, okay, enough of this star stuff. I want to go to bed. Well, no, not bed. That's me. Okay. Yeah, it's 11:20 for me, but it's not that late. Okay. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer. I actually don't know how many of you are watching or listening. For all I know, I could be talking to myself. But hey, it's fun, right? It's a lot of fun. So there you go. Alejandro and Stacy, back to you. Oh, they're asleep. They're sleeping. Alejandro's sleeping. He always does this. He goes to sleep. So let me know what you think. And you can always find me at info@fxmodels.com or MUFONanalyst@gmail.com. So thank you very much. I figured some dead air might get him to, realize that I'm done. Maybe he took off for 10 minutes. Yeah, there's always a moment. So anyway, okay. Well, anyway, let me tell you more about this. We actually have a 3D printer that's actually quite accurate, and I wanted to show you this moon image. Let me just get the right side facing you.
Do you want to take a few more?
No, I was done, and I said back to you, and then you didn't come back, so I figured.
I know I got a phone call. I'm sorry, buddy.
That's fine. That's okay. Not a problem. Because see, I was showing him the moon. Look at this.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful 3D print, and every crater is found in there. It's really pretty. But go ahead. If I don't know if anyone's got questions or not. Like I said, I don't know who's watching, how many are watching.
It doesn't look like it. I think I haven't seen any. Everybody's saying good night, so I guess we can say good night as well.
All right. Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, Mark, for another brilliant talk. Lots of fun conversation going on in Facebook and YouTube. You did a great job, as usual, in your blue room.
Well, hey, Siri, turn the lights red.
Okay, red.
There you go.
Whoa.
Red.
Freaky.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Thanks, man.
Okay, we'll see you guys later.
Until next time, adios, everybody.
Adios, amigos.